For me, co-production means breaking down barriers. It means not working with city leaders on one side and academics over here and activists over there. It means actually sort of coming together and collaborating and making change happen.
Co-production to me is all about inclusivity, involving local authorities, involving non-academics in our research projects as well, and it's all about maximising impact, not just having academics involved.
Working meaningfully with partners and stakeholders in such a way that they're involved in the design and implementation of research.
An equally participative partnership doesn't mean necessarily everyone does the same amount of everything, but there's an equal status within the partnership. It means that you get a fair share of what the resources are. It means you get a say over the direction of the project, and you get to participate, if appropriate, in delivery.
It also means that you don't become the passive recipient of knowledge. You're actually part of the process of creating it, which for people like us who are about making change happen, behaviour change and communications, is a really exciting difference.
So for me, co-production is a mindset, an orientation to the way that you might do research. It's better thought of as a set of principles rather than a roadmap that you're going to follow. So things to do with honesty, integrity, openness and reflexivity in research.
With any partnership, you've got to have some common aims and some common values, otherwise you can't do it.
In an inner city area which suffers high unemployment, high poverty levels and all the socio-economic things that go along with that, it's really important to empower local people to be involved in anything at all.
For me, co-production is bringing together different or unusual people to work together to look at a subject or a question in a safe space with no right answer.
What it's provided for us in this project is an opportunity for support and challenge both ways, so that you get academic rigour reinforced by the practicalities of being able to implement policy at a political level.
For as long as we see problems as being out there and that somebody else needs to solve them, then we're not going to get to a collaborative effort where people engage fully.
Because if you get the right parties together within those sort of partnerships, you are able to tackle issues, problems and stake out new territory that nobody could do on their own.
But of course there is also another element to this, and that is part of our job, I think, is to ask what the connections between those places and other places are, to engage in comparison. And I think that's part of how knowledge is generated and produced, and it's helpful to those communities to understand if there are others in similar circumstances or even perhaps in different circumstances from whom they can learn. Because you've actually listened to people, it becomes a more participative and even perhaps democratic process, and as a result people are more likely to feel that they own that knowledge and therefore able to use it in the context in which they live.
Urban problems can't be tackled in silos, so we really need to recognise that the problems that we face are extremely complex and that only by coming together can we really address them.
We know the way the city runs that we haven't collectively solved all the problems of the city by each of us operating in our own territory, and we know that by coming together sometimes you can take a different approach, crack things that nobody could have done. And that's why it's really, really crucial.
You can't have this sort of pipeline mentality where somebody makes a policy, another department delivers that policy, the passive recipients of that delivery find out about it when it's about to happen. That ain't the way anymore. You have to work together. It's kind of, it's all about compromise really, but in pursuit of a higher goal.
Ethically, it's a better approach because it means we're doing research with people rather than to people. And also you get better research out of it.
The way that the universities are having to change their methodology or whatever, their working practices when they research in a community setting, because they're a big academic institution and they have very different power relations to a local community.
I work for an organisation where there's just one of me, so I kind of tend to try and do everything myself, so I can't always do that. But the thing I've probably learnt the most is that people need varying levels of support.
You still need to have somebody who leads the process and who directs what's happening, but in a non-hierarchical way, where it's about saying, well, what have you got that is useful, what have you got that's useful, and how might we be able to bring them together?
You need to understand that different sectors have different ways of expressing themselves and expressing what they want, and it may not be the same language that you're used to using, so you need to be able to translate.
The university team did all they could to understand that what was happening in the local community, and were very sensitive to what some of those tensions may be. But I think in reality, I think you can't remove the inequality that exists in a co-produced project that has the university and local community involved, because it is a very imbalanced relationship.
The main lessons we've learned through the project have been that co-production takes time, patience, and it's a new way of working for people.
By working with lots of different people in partnership, it means that we've had to take more time to reflect on solutions and approaches which we may not have done otherwise. So there's moments of reflection along the way that I think are very productive.
When doing a research project like that with a very complex team involving all of these different actors, everyone's got very mixed schedules, and so it's very difficult to coordinate, especially when you're teaching as academics and you have other commitments outside of it, and so the time kind of match up there is very, very difficult.
The budget inevitably runs out, and whereas people's need for support doesn't.
One of the positive things that's come out of this research is seeing just how much is going on in Greater Manchester with urban food, whether that be recycling food waste or communities growing food. There's lots going on. One of the challenging things is that different communities and different groups have different ideas of what urban food is, and that can make it more difficult to have discussions. Also, it can make those discussions more interesting. It can make them more challenging.
It's been an extremely positive experience. We've had GMCVO as a researcher in its own right. We do a lot of our own research, and we've worked with universities for absolutely years. We host the National University Community Partners Network, and we host the Greater Manchester Third Sector Research Network, and we have never had such a good, equal, collaborative relationship with anyone than we have over this project.
The thing that I went to as part of the impact study, which was amazing, was the peer networking session at GMCVO, which brought together different people running community hubs. And I was surprised they hadn't got together more. They're all very busy, they don't have many resources, but that was very valuable, and if that could be replicated again, I think they got a lot out of that.
Organisations doing work around social issues in the city, around poverty, social exclusion, with the more environmental issues that might be seen as different. So I think for us it was bringing organisations and agendas together.
There was a lot of communication, there was a lot of shared decision making, there were a lot of local people, over 20 odd local people who were directly involved in that project and were making their own decisions within their own project.
People can learn new things, they can meet new people, they can achieve stuff together collectively that they might not have ordinarily or been able to kind of on their own as well.
These 20 odd people got, they achieved one of their ambitions or one of their dreams, and I think sometimes even things that they didn't think were possible.
I think from a knowledge perspective, what we've got is closer working relationships between the universities and the policymakers, with the creation of fora specifically looking to develop evidence and research that will support policy development. We've engaged with more community groups and more people that represent non-governmental organisations to improve our governance structure and to get a broader voice of people having an input into policy development. And in terms of the policy itself, it's brought officers together across Greater Manchester's combined authority to work on sustainable urban development rather than just a siloed approach to environment, social issues and economic issues.
The platform is a really useful, important website and resource which is being more and more widely used by other groups. And people have gone away with these new attitudes and new thoughts and new ways of looking at things.
Co-production isn't just about the kind of output, the quality of the end product. It's the quality of the experience.
I think that the chance to reflect on your practice when you're working with an academic team is much more of an outcome.
What I've appreciated out of the programme, a personal approach, is having an opportunity to bounce ideas off somebody who isn't within my peer group and isn't within my sphere of influence, and have their feedback that I can then consider and take back into the workplace. So there has been an issue of cross-mentoring, which has been very useful.
For me, I think the most important thing is to show that there are different ways of engaging with a city and with its future from the point of view of a university.
The main lessons we've learned through the project have been that co-production takes time, patience, and it's a new way of working for people.
I've learned that it takes a lot of effort to set up, but with a common goal, it really does work.
It's been very interesting actually. There's definitely a very different culture in academic life and in voluntary sector, which operates a bit more on a kind of entrepreneurial and very fast-paced way. Academics are slow and thoughtful. So there's been, I suppose, some accommodation of learning how to work with each other.
Co-production is a learning process in many different ways. I think one of the important lessons is that you really need institutional empathy to make it work. That means understanding what the different pressures are on organisations who are trying to develop cities and working in partnership in order to make the best of often very difficult situations.
It's nice to see people talking about it. Their testimonies are such that they've been part of it, they've been excited by it, they found it useful, they found it valid, and also it's broken down some barriers.
We've had a number of concrete outcomes, one of which has been the most direct, which is building a sustainability website for people to share knowledge. We've had 40,000 unique visitors to that site, sharing knowledge. We've built up a significant community of contributors, and we've had people visiting it from all over the world, which is really exciting. So we've had a very, very positive experience as part of that. And then I think for me personally, the other concrete outcome is finding out about how other people are approaching city region sustainability elsewhere in the world, and working with other people from Greater Manchester to take that knowledge from places like Gothenburg or Cape Town and figure out how it can play a part in how we solve the problems of tomorrow right here.
It's been far and away the most positive experience we've ever had with the university, and we're looking forward to just doing an awful lot more.
I think it's achieved a great deal in terms of bringing people together from communities and universities in the first place, and indeed also policymakers and others. It's enabled behind the scenes a more collaborative way of working rather than a kind of broadcast mode that very people are often in.
It's been a genuine partnership based on shared aims and shared values, and for that reason it's worked very well. And the project we're just about to start on, the so-called Jam and Justice, is got the buy-in from the Greater Manchester leadership. So what we discover through that project around how the city could and should be governed to really take devolution down to the people, that hopefully will actually be applied. And that wouldn't have been possible if we hadn't done the other work first.
Taking this forward, one of the most successful outcomes we've got is a new joint venture between the university, civil society organisations and policymakers in Greater Manchester. We're going to set up an action research cooperative to explore different ways of connecting citizens into decision making over regional and city regional affairs. And that's really important, it's really exciting. It's funded by the Economic and Social Research Council, but it wouldn't have happened without all of the work that we've done so far. Co-production is clearly not a quick fix, and there are many different perspectives on what this means in practice for different organisations. We've done it differently with different partners. I think what we've really built up now is a sense of commitment, trust and desire to understand and learn more about the strengths and limits of this approach.